Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Mark, and we're coming at you in the NFL, not postseason, off season. This is
Off
also
season.
episode 28, but the big thing is this is season 2, baby. Now that we're coming at you, season's over, past the Super Bowl. You're stuck with us for a whole nother year, going through the off-season prep, free agency, drafts, OTAs,
It's all
preseason,
coming.
whole thing all over again. Let's go.
Hit the reset button. But before we get into all that stuff you just said, John, which is super fun to talk about, we got some pretty big stuff to talk about in this episode about Sunday. Biggest game of the year in all sports, biggest game in the world. In my opinion, probably the best sporting event there is, the goddamn Super Bowl.
Yeah. And not only that, but I don't think you've ever looked more like a football coach in your entire life. I said that on your TikToks. Like, where are those aviators that you're wearing? You got a mustache right now?
I got a
Like,
mustache. I did a mustache. I don't know why I'm doing a mustache. I kind of just did it, and then I was like, well, maybe this is Andy Reid inspired in my subconscious. He coached his ass off, absolute game plan master, and he
and I cannot
put
wait
on a
to get
show.
into that. And
Yeah,
before we really get into, like, the film review and all of that stuff, I think this is a great segue. I was gonna show this later, but I think it's too good of a segue right now. I'll zoom in on this so you guys can see it a little better. Schefter. This is Adam Schefter that thought this was newsworthy to talk about. Andy Reid was asked today about how he celebrated the Super Bowl win once he returned to Kansas City. Keep in mind, last time he won the Super Bowl, he said he got some cheeseburgers with his family. This time, not cheeseburgers, baby. It's pizza. He said, yeah, I went to
upgrade.
Pizza 51, got a mushroom and sausage pizza. How about that? And a salad just to make my chubbiness feel good. What a fucking legend, dude.
He doesn't care, dude, what people think of him. He just goes out and he's just a football genius. He's one of the most likable guys around the league. And
So
there's
likable.
he's just that guy, man. He's that guy, and he's fun to watch when he's calling a game. He is fun to watch.
We have a really awesome film breakdown, which honestly I think Mark noticed something that not a whole lot of people noticed very quickly, and got some TikToks out on it. And this is the nice part about having a very brilliant coaching mind as a co-host on the podcast, is that Mark picks this stuff up instantly and knows exactly what Andy Reid was probably thinking about in that time. But before we get to that, you want to talk about the merch? I think we should talk about the merch.
Dude, let's talk about the merch. I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about the merch. Perch that merch up. Perch that merch up on the screen.
Perch that merch. We're gonna get going. So Mark and I commissioned our good friend Evan Pulaski, who we've
Shout
known
out
since
Evan.
we were literally kids, and also like this background with the football field that you're seeing and our old logo and all that stuff. It's all thanks to Evan. And we were like, hey, we want to do a merch drop, and Evan got us hooked up. So these will come in white, black, gray t-shirts and hoodies, as well as hats. So we're just going to show you guys the designs right now, and we're going to have the actual merch drop with any option that I just listed in a store for you guys to pick some stuff up. So he did an awesome job just drawing us, basically, debating our football topics. I have a face of Mark making a horrible take and Mark defending it. So pretty killer on that one.
Yeah, show him the font. Love the font.
Yeah.
Evan chose the color scheme, by the way, too, and me and John both agreed within 3 seconds. We didn't tell him anything about what we wanted. He just like, here you guys go, and we're like,
he makes it so easy, man. It's just like,
shout out to Evan. The stuff's cool.
And then we have
merch is gonna be awesome,
an
guys.
Anime design too that I think I can show real quick. Might have to stop the screen because I'm an idiot, so that's my bad.
No worries.
There we
the anime
go.
is pretty cool. It's worth
The
showing.
anime one's pretty cool too.
So shout out to Evan. This stuff's gonna be, like John said, hoodies, hats. They're coming. Different options of where the lettering is, and little variations in the stuff, but you guys can pick what you want, and we'll have that link posted here pretty soon for you guys to go check it out. It's worth looking at. And it's hard to choose what you want to get, honestly.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be tough, because shout out to our partners in Infinity Merch, who were incredibly easy to work with too. I've worked with Jeff there in the past for some of my band merch, and I was like, hey, do you guys do like print to order stuff? Because we have like 8 different designs in our head, but we're not going to throw $5,000 to, pre-order freaking 500 t-shirts or something like that. And he's like, no, I have this business where you mock it up. When somebody orders it, we print it and ship it straight to them. So beautiful business model. I just, I love stuff like that. So
yeah,
pretty
makes
awesome.
it very easy for everyone involved.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's get into the Super Bowl. So lots and lots and lots of stuff to talk about. I will say overall, I really enjoyed the game. I do feel like these were the two best teams in the NFL going at it. It was close the entire time. I think both teams really came very well prepared, both offensively and defensively, even though no sacks on either side of the ball, which is kind of crazy.
Which really
Wasn't
crazy there.
I mean, probably because the field was an ice rink, which we'll talk about a little bit. But yeah, it was an awesome game. Obviously, there was a controversial call that I think had every football fan just kind of like seething a little bit, where there's just like, man, like, does it really got to end this way on this freaking flag that allows them to, just run out the clock basically? And, we'll get into that. But overall, man, I really enjoyed the game. I thought that I don't know if it was one of my favorites, but I'd say it was probably somewhere in like the top 5 or 6 out of like ones that were really memorable and just kept me entertained and engaged the entire time.
Yeah, it was an awesome game. It was an awesome game to watch. I'll give both teams credit. They put on a show. I want to give Jalen Hurts insane amount of credit because I doubted him. I posted about him kind of struggling in the big moments in his past, and like a lot of people have put him down his entire career, and he came out and played better than anybody else in the entire game. I mean, he outplayed every other person. He made one crucial mistake that ended up being the difference in the game, but he played a hell of a game. Both coaching staffs had a great game plan offensively. Defense, there were some question marks, especially on the Eagles, but we'll get into that and with some film breakdown and stuff. But yeah, this was an awesome game, John. It's up there, probably top 5 Super Bowls that we've been alive for to watch. Had the potential to have a fantastic ending as well. Obviously, there's some debate on the call and whatnot. I feel like we might have got robbed from a natural, exciting ending, but I do think the Chiefs deserve to win. I think they were the better team, and
I think the Chiefs would have won that game either way, regardless of that flag.
Yeah.
But so here's my thing. Look, it was holding. I'm not contesting whether or not that play was holding. The dude was grabbing jersey when he was releasing. Like that's a hold.
And Bradbury admitted, he
said it was a hold. The thing is that they were letting him play the entire game, and so I hate situations where the refs kind of, like it's unspoken because every reffing crew is a little different. Where it's like, hey, like we're gonna let you guys get away with being a little bit more physical, and then push comes to shove, literally, and that call happens. And look, Casey ended up kicking a field goal either way there. So to me, it's like, okay, you're kicking a field goal, you're down 3 points, where Philly has, whatever it was, 6 seconds on the clock versus having a minute and a half on the clock, right? Entirely different scenarios and situations.
Yeah.
And from just a viewing experience, right? As a football fan, like, this game is ending with a piece of yellow freaking laundry on the field, and that decides it. Versus, man, there's a minute and a half left. Jalen Hurts has a chance to, shut all the haters up. Casey's defense has a chance to show out, could go into overtime, like all of those kind of questions that just keep you really engaged. And instead, it's like last 2 minutes is the clock bleeding out, and you already know who's going to win the game. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Is like I'm not contesting whether or not it was a penalty. I'm just contesting on, was it called consistently, and did it impact the outcome of the game from a viewing experience, from a
even did it
experience.
John, and on top of that, did it really affect the outcome of that play? I don't think Juju Smith, the angle he was taking on that route, Mahomes was basically throwing it away, So yeah. I mean, because they're playing ultra conservative there on that throw. It was basically touchdown or incompletion. Like in his head, he's thinking anything but interception here. And so he threw it wide, and I don't think Juju was getting there no matter what, even if he wasn't held. So it's like, that's what makes it harder to see. And I was rooting for the Chiefs, and I saw that, and I got a little bit upset. I was like, I wanted to see a more exciting ending like everybody else did. And I think that the Chiefs were going to win, like you said, no matter what. But in that fashion, it just took away from the potential of an absolute legendary ending in Super Bowl history. And it sucks, but it was the right call. It's just a matter of, did we want to see it or not? And I think most people would say, no, we didn't want to see that call.
Yeah, and in big moments like that, refs have had a bad habit of, holding. that flag, right? So it's tough. And look, overall though, I'd say the game was very well officiated, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to go so far to say that the officiating was poor that entire night. I don't think that whatsoever. I think the officiating was great. Which, it's a rare compliment to pay, especially since I think, had quite a few complaints about the officiating, even in the AFC NFC championship. So, but overall, yeah, I really enjoyed my time. We hosted about 10 people. Hannah and I, had a pretty amazing spread. So, definitely, had my fill of calories and beer for the day, but it's all good. That's what Super Bowl Sunday's for, right?
That's what it's all about. I had a nice gourmet meal of mini weenies.
Mini weenie, like pigs in a blanket, like the little
pigs in a blanket. Yeah, that was
nice.
my Super Bowl move.
No,
that
I'm
and a little
not. I'm not
buffalo
a big
chicken
ketchup
dip.
guy on hot dogs, so like I'm
Dude,
usually
I
I
just
just
dip
stick
it in
straight
mustard.
Yep.
Yes, straight mustard.
All right,
John, you and I
you heard it
get
here
each
first.
other. We
Yep,
get
Mark
each
and I
other,
agreeing
man.
on something.
There it is. That might be the only
Okay.
thing we agree on the whole episode.
Right. Well, okay. So I do have to ask you this because we've kind of put it to rest when the regular season ended. But you've been keeping an eye on those ACT dates. Do you have a date picked out yet? Like, what's the process here, Mark? I mean, it's
It's
February.
yeah. I mean, I'm researching it, and there's a couple things going on. They usually have dates in June or July.
Okay.
Courses, and there's a chance that my sister takes the ACT to try to get scholarship money for college. So there's a chance I'm taking it with my sister. I am looking at the dates. I just haven't looked in if there's any rules on like age limit or anything. It's the only thing, something like that. And if that's the case, we'll find an alternative test for me to take. I don't see it being a problem.
GRE sounds like the proper alternative. It's just the college ACT. So there you go.
Yeah. So, but I have been preparing a little bit. I'm going to go in there and try to do well on it because I feel like if I'm going to take it, I might as well try to do well. See if I can beat my high school score.
I know we've been saying under or over, and I think that's fine. But honestly, what we should do, especially now that we're going to have merch, is we should have people just guess the score outright. And the first person to guess it right will just send you a free whatever you want. Like, done.
If you get my score spot on with one guess per person.
Right.
I think that warrants a free.
Send you a hoodie. We'll send you a hat, whatever you want.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna put your big brain to work, not on ACT or GRE prep, but on film, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, I'd rather do that for sure than ACT.
So Mark pointed out Andy Reid pretty much noticing a critical weakness in the Eagles' defense, which is the way that they were handling. Essentially trading off coverage in man defense. And I'm not a defensive back, so maybe Mark will kind of describe this a little bit better, and I will just handle the entire film slidey bullshit. Mark?
Yeah. So this is the Kadarius Toney touchdown. Okay, this is the Chiefs touchdown that gave them the lead. So the play prior, which we don't have video of, the very previous play in this game, they run the same motion, okay, with Toney in motion, and they see that Slay chases the motion, right, and that they try to knock it. So the play prior, they saw the Eagles do the exact same thing in the secondary, and a lot of times, all of the pre-snap movements that these teams are running, especially down in the red zone, are to see what the Eagles are going to do, what the defense is going to, because they have to react. If you're a man-to-man, you can't just sit there, because if you sit there, that's a telltale sign you're in zone. And if you play zone against them, they're just going to run little sit routes and pick you apart. Okay, Mahomes is too good.
Can you define what knock it means?
So knock it is what they're doing right here. If you pause it right after, see Slay putting his hand up in the air. So he's trying to communicate to the secondary to his right. Okay, so he's the widest cornerback. He's trying to communicate to Avonte Maddox, who's press coverage on Kelsey here at the bottom of the screen. And the safety in the hole here, you can see, I think it's Gardner Johnson right on the A in the end zone. He's yelling knock, 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 or, there's different verbiage for it. But knock basically means slide one man over. So they're in man-to-man coverage. So the ideal situation would be Slay would guard Kelsey, Maddox would chase into the hole, and Gardner Johnson would come down on the opposite side and guard Toney when he clears the offensive line, because they think he's running a crossing route or he's running across the formation, because they showed that the previous 3 times they ran this motion. So they set it up, right? And so as you can see, they knock it, miscommunication in the secondary. Avonte Maddox starts to chase, but Tony doesn't cross the field, runs the whip route right back into the flat. Slay and Maddox both were supposed to be on Kelsey there at the end of the play. Neither of them were, ended up having both guys open. This is just horrible communication in the secondary, but really great play call, great play setup. And John, if the next clip, if you can bring up, would actually be the Jags clip, which I sent you as well.
Mark,
so this
is why you're brilliant, is because of the fact this is what, week 4, right? This is October 2nd that this got posted. So this is like week 4 or 5 of the regular season. And Mark notices the Jags playing the Eagles. They give him the exact same play, basically.
Exact same look, right? So same formation, the stacked with the receiver on the line, which was Kelsey, with the slot off the ball so that he can motion from the outside spot. And if you go back to the beginning, John, you'll see it's the same motion from Agnew, okay, making it look like he's going to cross the formation. And when he puts his foot in the ground and comes back to the flat, you see the same result. The Eagles do not cover it. They try to knock it. You can see in our TikTok, there's a different angle of this clip on my TikTok post that shows the Eagles trying to knock it, and they do not knock it, and they do not communicate it well. And Agnew ends up unguarded for a touchdown. So you could call me smart all you want, John. All I'm doing is noticing it. Andy Reid saw this in film prep. Eric Bieniemy, Mahomes, those guys, they saw this in film prep. They watched clearly every week of the season in their 2 weeks prepping for this game. They saw that, okay, as a consistent issue that the Eagles had in the secondary all year long. The Lions did similar stuff to them in the red zone when they played Detroit, okay? I'm sure we could find clips of that as well if you look hard enough. They saw this. They put in this play for that reason, knowing they were going to get that look. They set it up throughout the game, running motions to see if it was just to make sure that they're going to give the same look that they showed against the Jags and other teams. And then they did it again.
And so as a defense, how do you handle this, right? Because as you alluded earlier, like going zone is not the solution to defending that play properly, right?
It's very that play, you're probably better off in zone. But again, when you're down there and you try to play zone, they're just going to do what works against zone, which is little stick routes, giving Kelsey option routes and just throwing them like a low ground ball. I mean, how many times have we seen defenses try to just kind of box everything in and not give up any sort of motion plays and just kind of play zone? And then Kelsey just sits in the opening. That's what he's so good at. And the chemistry him and Mahomes have, it's almost easier for them to score if you play zone. So you try to play man-to-man, but then you play man-to-man, it's like pick your poison. Then they start doing stuff like this and have walk-in touchdowns. They ran the same play to Sky Moore on the next possession. The exact same play, just flipped the field and the same motion. He ended up even more wide open than Tony was the first time, which is, hats off to them for calling the same play twice. So you don't see many OCs do that.
And to
but
me,
if it's working,
that's what I was going to say, is just like Andy Reid just out-coached Sirianni offensively that entire second half. It's just, but first half, like obviously it
honestly,
like
John, the first half too, because they went down and scored. It's just the Eagles possessed the ball the whole damn first half. If the Chiefs would have had the ball as much as they had it in the second half and the first half, I think we would have seen the same result. Like the Chiefs offense was firing on all cylinders and the Eagles didn't do anything to adjust in the second half. I mean, I don't want to fault the defensive coordinator a little bit, but you got to throw some different looks at Patrick Mahomes and just kind of try to guess a little bit and surprise them. And they just kind of stayed in the same, few coverages the whole game. And once you get in the red zone, they did the same thing every time the Chiefs were in the red zone. That's why they scored every time they had the ball in the second half.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is just, like one of the reasons why I thought the Eagles had a chance this game is because KC's weakness, in my opinion, is taking away Pat Mahomes through just playing good defensive line, right? Keeping pressure on him, making him run, making him have to do off-script stuff. It's hard for any quarterback to do that. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're running for your life, it's not the same play, right? But at the same time, I also think the Eagles have one of the best defensive backfields in the league. So it was crazy to me to see, Kelsey wide open, like blown coverages, like, there's instances where guys kind of got beat over top a little bit. So that was really shocking to me. And to me, it was almost like, okay, is this happening just because of the fact that there's not pressure in the trenches right now, and it's not kind of relieving these defensive backs to make their jobs a little easier? or is it actually because the scheming's bad and this is just not a good matchup and Travis Kelce's running all over them?
I think, John, it was a combination of both. I think that by no means the Eagles are a bad defensive team. They're not bad in the secondary, and they've been damn good up front all year. I mean, they led the league in sacks by a mile, right? To see them get 0 sacks in this game, you have to give credit to the Chiefs' protection plan. Okay,
Absolutely.
it wasn't just the offensive line stepping up, which they did. Okay, and the Eagles' offensive line stepped up as well. It was schematically using tight ends to chip and then release as a check down, using McKinnon as a pass protector, using Pacheco as a pass protector, chipping before going into the flat as a check down. It bought Mahomes that much more time to make the proper read and throw. And there were times that the Eagles got close and he was able to do what I kind of said he was going to do. He was able to move around and make it happen, even though he was injured. And you could tell
he was able to move around way more than I expected him to, and I don't know if that's the 2 weeks of rest or the perks or a combination of the two.
Adrenaline, drugs, and 2 weeks of rest will do wonders.
Sorry, bad media coverage there. We do not know that Pat Mahomes was on perks as his painkiller, but Aaron Rodgers made some
I like to think
about
at least
that.
at halftime, John, I can almost guarantee there was a little bit of a cortisone shot going into that ankle.
Something in that genre, like real strong shit for sure.
And no one really talks about that stuff, John, but I think it is worth noting because I think the average football fan doesn't realize how commonly it really is, and it's not ever public knowledge. But if you go look at like Calvin Johnson talking about his time in Detroit, I mean, that's a big reason why he retired early. He was getting cortisone shots in his knees like every game, man. Yeah. And like sometimes for practice.
Aaron Rodgers,
it's a commonly used
shock. It was a culture shock to everybody. Like when Aaron Rodgers just openly said, like, yeah, there were games where I was injured and they put me on perks so that I could play the game.
Dude, listen, when you're getting paid that much money, you know, and franchises are investing millions and millions and millions into you to win Super Bowls, I'm sorry, dude, but unless you're dead, you're going to find a way to play. Like Patrick Mahomes has literally said, you're not keeping me off the field in this game. So whatever they have to do, whatever doctors suggest, whatever the risks aren't risks. As long as they ain't going to kill him, you know?
Right.
So
it's crazy. Like another thing I do want to say in relation to the protection too, is there were complaints, very loud complaints, that the $800,000 grass fields that they spent like a year working on just for the Super Bowl was an ice rink. It was garbage. The grass apparently was super slippery and wet. It was like playing in the rain, even though it wasn't raining. I'm not a grass expert personally, so I can't really tell you why that is. Pat McAfee had like a conspiracy that this is a way to shut all of the no more turf fields in the NFL people up. And be like, oh, okay, this is what you want is indoor grass fields that actually are garbage. The better on your joints, but garbage to play on. I don't know where I fall in that argument, but it's the Super Bowl, man. Like that's crazy. I understand like there was good intentions behind it, but it clearly blew up because you could see, I mean, it made being an offensive lineman that much easier because the defensive lineman's own momentum was taking them out of the play because you just got a right push and the grass was doing the rest of the work. It was taking their feet out from under them. So
it wasn't great to see. And, there's people can blame it and stuff like that. I just think, listen, whether you play the game on the most beautiful, perfect turf field, horrible muddy grass field and slippery one like they played in, or if you play the game in a damn parking lot, the better team's going to win. The better players make more plays. The better coaching's going to show itself at some point. It doesn't matter where you play it because all the players are playing on the same surface.
Right.
So if you're playing on an ice rink, cement, the perfect grass, at the end of the day, the result's going to be the result. It might benefit one team or the other, but they're all playing on the same surface. Right. And there were times where Chiefs players slipped. There were times where Eagles players slipped. And
this is both sides of the ball. Like I said, it was easy to be an offensive lineman versus a defensive lineman.
It definitely benefited both offensive lines. Probably benefited receivers because, you could get defensive backs to fall on double moves. Kelce's first touchdown, the first Chiefs touchdown where they came back and answered the bell, was a beautiful route. And that defensive back had no chance. I mean, he slipped a little bit on the double move. Awesome route. Sold it fantastically. Awesome route from Kelce and a beautiful throw. But on that play, I mean, you can tell like that DB had no chance. He wasn't going to be able to recover. His feet were kind of, slipping a little bit because he was already worried about an out route, and now he's doing an out and up route. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late.
Right.
So, but
yeah,
it is what
interesting
it
stuff.
is.
Oh, and then like I said, I had not like outright skepticism, but I thought that Pat Mahomes last year was having a very off year, and then this year they're nowhere to be seen, no weaknesses to be seen, and like this just proves it, man.
Can you
This
go
guy
ahead and
is.
read this, John? Just read it. Just read it straight down.
I will, and what I just want to make sure he's in year 5 or 6 of the NFL.
This was his 6th season, his fifth as a starter.
Okay, 5th as a starter. So in 5 years of playing starting quarterback in the NFL, he has 2 Super Bowl rings, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 NFL regular season MVPs, an NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 2 times first team All Pro, a second team All Pro, has been in the Pro Bowl all 5 years, 2x NFL passing touchdowns leader, NFL passing yards leader, which was this past year. And he has NFL records for career passing rating, minimum 1,500 attempts at 105.7. Career playoff passing rating, 106.1. Total yards by a quarterback in the season at 5,600. Passing touchdowns in a single postseason at 11. And then you sent me another thing too, that his percent of games in the postseason where he has 3 or more passing touchdowns was like 56% or something like
and
that.
The next closest was like 28%.
It was like 30 or something like that. Exactly. Yeah. So look, I mean, I don't know if anybody will ever match the career that Tom Brady has had, but if you just extrapolate what he has done in his first 5 years to his 40s, right? Another like 15 years of this stuff. I mean, that's 6 Super Bowls, 20 Pro Bowls, at 6 or 7 MVPs. Like it's nuts. He is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon because of the type of player he is, right? He's mobile, but he doesn't rely on his mobility to be a good quarterback whatsoever. He is just fine as a pocket passer, which means that he can play well until his late 30s, or maybe even 40s, like Rodgers and Brady and Manning and all those guys. So yeah.
The next closest, John, was Montana with 39%, 3 touchdowns in playoff games. That was the next closest.
Crazy.
Yeah, the guy just, I mean, you can't talk enough about how great he is. It's not just the skill set that he has. It's the cerebral ability that he has, to read defenses. It's his ability to adapt and, insert himself into an Andy Reid system that's always worked in the NFL, but to step into that system and make it better than it's ever been, you have to give Mahomes the credit there. And then obviously his ability to relate with his receivers like Travis Kelce on and off the field, creating chemistry. I mean, they can look at each other and know what they're thinking and know what they're going to do. And he had that chemistry with Tyreek Hill. Even with rookie receivers like Sky Moore and they brought in Tony, he was there half the season and he's making big time plays in a Super Bowl because he's got this chemistry and timing down with all of these guys. I mean, he completed passes, I want to say, to like 11 different dudes.
It's
in
crazy.
That game.
It's crazy. And it's amazing because of the fact that like people thought that taking away Hill was going to somewhat neutralize him as a quarterback. And no, it's just been winning by committee. Like it doesn't matter if there's 8, 9, 10 different targets, like they are still getting it done and they are scheming these guys to be in favorable positions each time. And what's even crazier too, and I agree with you, like he knows how to read a defense like any top tier quarterback in the league. And let's not forget that he openly says he had no clue how to do any such thing when he was in college. Like he was like, yeah, we was just Air Force football, like just gunslinger mentality. Like guys were just going out routes and I was trying to complete passes to him. He was not even considering the way that the defensive formation looked in college and had to learn that while playing at the top level in the NFL. I mean, he's incredible, truly. And I think
it's worth noting too, John. I just want to note some of the post-game drama of what's happened really quick before we get back into some of the breakdown of big plays and stuff. But I
Sure.
want to say the Isaiah Pacheco doing the just want to rock dance. And not only did he do it after his touchdown, but doing it in the locker room after the game. That was like the Eagles anthem all playoffs. And that's just demoralizing. You had Travis Kelce hit the stanky leg after his touchdown, probably the best stanky leg I've ever seen. And then this is so Juju Smith-Schuster, by the way, I'm not a fan of. He did play pretty well in the Super Bowl and he made some big plays, but to do this is just stupid, I think, and he deserves the response.
Yeah,
I'll
and
read it
AJ,
from AJ Brown. So basically, Juju Smith-Schuster said, "Happy Valentine's Day, everybody," with a meme of Bradbury saying, "I'll hold you when it matters most." Right? I guess talking about him holding him on that last play that essentially ended the game for the Eagles. AJ Brown quotes the tweet, says, "First off, congrats. Y'all deserve it. This is lame. You was on the way out the league before Mahomes resurrected your career on your 1-year deal, TikTok boy. He admitted that he grabbed you, but he don't act like you're like that or ever was. But congratulations again," with the beer emoji and the confetti and the clapping hand. Like, Juju Smith-Schuster was not even in, I would say, the top 15 players on the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. And if you want to include the Eagles players that played well, he's like not even in the top 30 in terms of playing.
There's like two options as a winner, right? Like you can take the Melvin Gordon route where he's like, I didn't do shit. I don't deserve this ring. Like, or you can take the Juju Smith route where it's like, exactly, like career resurrected on a 1-year deal, was pissing everybody off with TikToks, was really underperforming with the Steelers. And now he's acting like he's on top of the world. Like, I'm sorry, but I just hate egotisticals. It's the same thing with Eli Apple, man. It's like, okay, you talk and talk and talk and talk until you finally lose, and then you just go silent. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay,
I will say at least they waited till after the game to do it because, the damage is done. But next year, Chiefs have karma coming their way because that's just no class, especially in a game as big as the Super Bowl and a hard fought game, and it's not, you dominated the game and you were the sole reason that the Chiefs, like if Mahomes came out and said something like that, you can't really dispute him. He would look like an asshole, but you can't really say anything about it. But you didn't see Mahomes saying that stuff, Kelce gave them their respect. He gave them their dues. It's like there's a way to do it. And then there's a way to, and it's always the players, John. We said this when Eli Apple did. It's always the players that shouldn't be talking. It's the players that didn't have
Well, it's because the real winners are focused on getting better for the next one. Right.
And they don't have to ask for praise. If Mahomes does not have to go around saying, I balled out. Right. People are doing that
or seeking attention,
obvious.
Right? Or it's like making it about. I mean, I remember, right, like Calvin Johnson, for all the years that we watched him, it didn't really do so much as a touchdown dance ever, right? He'd usually just toss the ball to the fan and
did his thing,
just did his business, right? Never talked shit, like just wasn't that kind of guy. Why? Because he was the best receiver in the NFL at the time, and nobody was going to dispute that, regardless of what he did or said off of the field or celebrated with touchdowns, right? It's like, if you're a winner, act like you're a winner. It's not that hard.
Exactly.
And like everybody already respects you if you're truly a winner, right? As you're saying, like Mahomes doesn't need to do that stuff. Kelce can talk shit, but the thing about Kelce is that he does it when other people are counting Casey out, right? Saying the Bengals are the Bills.
That was response. Yeah, that was
exactly.
Kelce acting, saying jabroni, calling the mayor a jabroni and all that stuff. That was in response to the mayor talking shit directly to them.
Right.
Everyone in the media questioning Mahomes, calling it Burrowhead, and Eli Apple opening his mouth. That was warranted, him doing that. Because that's
response
not how
to
Kelce
disrespect.
normally is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's times where it's like, it's warranted to give a punch back, right? But AJ Brown, Bradbury, they didn't do anything to Juju Smith. They didn't say anything about him in the media. They didn't put him down. They didn't question them. They didn't complain. The Eagles easily could have had this loss and went and complained about referees and, complained about the grass and made all these different excuses and say, Mahomes is, getting his foot shot up at halftime and whatever. You could have made a million excuses, but they didn't. They give him credit. Hard-fought game. Jalen Hurts handled himself very well after a loss. Pretty much the whole Eagles roster handled himself very well for a loss. A tough loss, by the way.
And look, man, with the way this roster set up, they're going to lose some veteran talent this year, 100%. But they also got 2 first-round picks. They've been drafting out of their minds lately, from what I can tell. I've been very impressed with their past couple draft classes. Like,
Yeah.
they're in good hands. They're going to be contenders for the next few years here. Their window is clearly open. Jalen Hurts is legit, right? Anybody that's saying he's a system QB is not paying attention to what that dude has done this entire season. They got a great offensive line. They got a great defensive line. And they're going to be able to reload on those skill positions just fine too. So it's like they're taking the loss, with a lot of dignity, and they're acting like they're going to be back there at some point in the near future. And whether or not they are is one thing. I mean, they might have a Super Bowl hangover to deal with for sure. By the way, speaking of, like, I know we need corner more than we need safety at the Detroit Lions, but like CJ Gardner-Johnson, you're a free agent. Get your ass over here, dude. You seem like a Dan Campbell guy.
He's a stud. See, dude, he played. Listen, besides obviously some coverage busts, which every Eagles defensive back had, it seemed like at some point in that game, he came down and laid the boom several times on running backs from Kansas City. And I mean, he made it. He made them aware. Hey, I'm in the building, and I'm sending a message like I'm coming down to cause pain. Like
he's a stud, and I'm thinking him, and then his backups are Kirby Joseph and Walker. Like, I think that might be the best safety core in the NFL. And like, and Mark, you can kind of describe this to me, right? Like, and it seems like in the NFL, but like in high school and college, the role of safety is pretty distinctly different from the role of corner. I feel like those lines get blurred a little bit more in the NFL. Would you mind kind of describing like why that is? And, is it just purely because of their athleticism and their ability to kind of match a corner's skill set and are just also really good open field tacklers? Like, how does that kind of work?
So it's pretty much, it's tough because a lot of guys high school, college level can play both safety and corner because they can cover anybody. And, the talent on the offensive side of the ball, the mismatches aren't as common, right? So, but once you take that leap to the NFL, you got guys that are A+ in coverage, and then you got guys that are A+ in tackling and run support and also be able to cover. And then you got guys that can do both very, very well. There's very few safeties that can do both very well. That's why, you see like Sauce Gardner's not a great tackler. He would not make a great safety. Him having to cover slots and tight ends like Kelsey, not really his thing. But when you put him out wide and let him get in a wide receiver's face, usually smaller guys, quicker guys, longer guys, skinnier guys, some big guys, but he's not going to guard many tight ends, right? That's a different type of player. So the safety position in the NFL, you got to be big enough and fearless enough to tackle guys like Isaiah Pacheco and guard guys like Kelsey. And then you also have to be able to cover guys like Tyreek Hill, right? And have the speed and the agility to be able to match that and also match size and strength like Kelsey, Gronkowski's, those guys. Safety is a very tough position because of the so many different things they're going to be asked to do. Corners, pretty much, hey, lock this dude up.
Right.
Cover, right? And it's skinnier guys. Sauce Gardner is a prime example of what most corners are going to look like. There's every now and then there's some freak corners like Darrell who are built like safeties who can basically do anything that they want to anybody that they want on the field. But yeah, that's the main difference. And that's why it's such a noticeable difference between college, high school, and pros in terms of what they ask safeties to do compared to corners.
Sure. No, that's a great explanation. And it's just like, okay, hey, it's officially off season now, so you can start talking about this. Like, I'm just curious how the Lions are going to handle free agency because, and the draft, obviously, because you lock up safety, right? Then you can feel pretty good about just going corner and probably, I mean, if I were them, I would pick up 2 corners in the top 3 rounds of this draft somewhere, just because why not, right? Quality assurance, right? Linebackers are looking decent. Our defensive line's looking great. Like, it's tough. So, and other way around too, right? I don't know how many, guys of CJ Gardner-Johnson's caliber, in respect to corner are really out there in free agency this year. So that's why I'm thinking, okay, you could lock him down and you have an absolute stud at safety. And then, you can have kind of young talent, right? Okuda's a really good open field tackler. He's not the best at, covering from what I could tell this past season. I think Jerry Jacobs is pretty underrated. I don't know how to attack that. I'm sure Brad Holmes has a plan and I'm sure he's going to execute on that plan just fine. But obviously that's the biggest problem area that Detroit has, and I just want to see a strong push to address it this offseason.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's definitely the number one priority for them this offseason, whether it's free agency or draft. I think you're going to see them definitely, dipping in, trying to find the right pieces in the secondary. Both safety and corner need some work. And I'm sure that they'll find the pieces they need, because if they're able to find anything close enough, they're going to be legitimate contenders in the division and probably in the NFC, So that's a big deal. You don't hear Lions fans, especially people like me who hate on them and don't ever want to believe them. Like, I'm openly saying, like, I really do think they have a good chance. I think right now, betting wise, they're like the 7th best odds to win the Super Bowl in the whole NFL, which that's unheard of for Lions fans.
I haven't seen that in my lifetime. Exactly.
No.
And then, the other thing I want to touch on quickly with the Lions, then we'll kind of get back to a little bit of Super Bowl stuff is, what do we do with that pick, right? Do we trade down to acquire more assets, or do we try to trade up to get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter? Because that's a huge question too.
I would not against, because you only have to trade up 1 or 2 picks, I think, to get one of those guys. And I want Will Anderson. I think Jalen Carter is going to go before him. So if you can go up 1 or 2 picks and get Will Anderson, I do think it's worth maybe giving up another later round pick to get Will Anderson. Changes our defense drastically. Him, Hutchinson in year 2, the other pieces that we've built around in the interior defensive line. I think he adds something to the linebacking core. He can come down and blitz. He can run off the edge. He can do anything you ask him to do in that front 7. And we kind of don't really have a guy that can do everything. Hutchinson is good at what he does, right? But Will Anderson can do everything you ask a defensive player to do in the front 7. Then you don't have to be as good in the back end if you're getting sacks every single play or tackle for losses every first down.
And that's the thing.
So it's a big
Hutchinson
difference.
was very productive on multiple fronts this past season, and he was the most double teamed rookie, and I think he was like top 10 for most double teamed defensive linemen the entire season. Right? If you give an offense, or you take away the option for an offense to do that because they have other threats that they really need to consider, that's massive for the opportunities that opens up. So I completely agree with you. Either way, I think we're sitting in a very good position. And I'm just excited to see Brad Holmes work his magic for a 3rd year now, because I think he is an A+ rating as far as how he's handled the past 2 off seasons. So he has built a contending team in a very short amount of time. Do we want to talk about the halftime? I know you put it on the schedule here before we move on to some
yeah, man,
stuff.
Come on.
All right.
Listen, how do you not talk about the halftime? You got to talk about the halftime.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be long, John. I know,
I enjoyed it
against Rihanna. Yeah.
No, I don't have any. No, I enjoyed it. I thought for a pregnant woman suspended 100 feet in the air, she did a great job.
So when did you realize she was pregnant? Because the whole show, because I didn't know, and I don't think anyone knew. And the whole show, I'm like, dude, she's not really dancing or moving. And then I kind of started,
I noticed where we started speculating is 2 things. One, her zipper was like open to clearly showcase her belly, right? And it's almost like, I almost felt like she was trying to like state like, what, you don't think I'd be in better shape for the freaking Super Bowl and other conditions?
I didn't want to be that guy
was, like, a little heavier, but
you never want to be that guy that goes, is she pregnant? And not pregnant.
Right.
You don't ever want to be that guy, I've learned that the hard way once in my life. So that's an uncomfortable situation. So I sure as hell was careful of who I asked, of what who I was texting.
Right. And then, the movement, right? Like she's a very good, she's always been more of a casual dancer. Like I saw her live with Eminem, like 6-7 years ago, probably. And like, she's not somebody to do like a bunch of like, crazy all over the stage kind of like hip hop dancing, but obviously she knows how to move. And I noticed that like, everything was very casual, and she was kind of letting the backup dancers do the work. One thing, so I thought it was great. I thought that I tend to like more of the performances than not. It always seems like there's controversy around the quality of the halftime performance every year. I don't know why. Like, guys, they're lip syncing anyways every single time. I'm sorry to tell you. Like, for the past decade, that's been the rule with the NFL, is they pretty much don't let you do the halftime performance unless you're backtracking the entire damn thing. So like, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the hits, right? Like, and Rihanna's got a lot of them. I forgot how many freaking hits she had. She
Yeah,
probably
it was
left 5 or
endless.
6 off of the set, and I still
Yeah.
knew every freaking song that she played, right? So, no, it was cool. One thing that and this is not any fault of Rihanna's or the halftime show, it drove me nuts though, is guys like Jamal Williams and Travis Kelce got fined 15, 20, 25, $30,000 over the course of the season for, a couple pumps after a touchdown. And it's like, okay, fine. If that's the rule that we're going to make, that players aren't allowed to do that and like move their hips in any sort of way to celebrate a touchdown dance, whatever. I guess that's the rule. No fun league. I'm used to it. But then you get literally 100 people out there that are just like making love to the air and the ground. And it's like, okay, so are you guys trying to be family friendly or not? Because just because they're musicians at a halftime performance doesn't make it any less or more inappropriate. So it's like,
Yeah.
that part kind of drove me nuts a little bit, just because of the fact that like they're taking tens of thousands of dollars out of other players' hands for doing things a quarter as offensive as what we were watching for that halftime show. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a double standard. There's always going to be one. Players are just going to be held to a different standard, and it's part of being in the NFL. It is the no fun league. It's been like that for a long time. There's players that don't care, like Chad Ochocinco in his day. Like, he used to just take advantage.
He's like, find me whatever,
he
man.
broke every rule in the whole book, and I bet you if you asked him right now, he'd say it was damn worth it. Because just iconic moments. I don't think Jamal Williams regrets any pumps in the end zone this year.
I don't think he does
because
either.
People aren't going to forget it. It made his historic season that much better. And
right. Well, I mean, with Chad
it is.
Ochocinco, right, he's not even that concerned about money in the first place because of the fact that he eats McDonald's for a meal every single day.
Wore fake jewelry his whole career too, John. Yeah, he said, he said, I'm confident in who I am and how I look and how I play. Why would I have to go blow my money that I'm earning and working hard to earn on jewelry to look good? I know I look good. He's like,
a legend.
I look the same in this fake chain as I would in a real chain. Why am I going to go spend $200,000 on some fancy rapper chain when I can wear this fake one for $12 and look just as good? He's like,
dude,
so
I love that. I love that so much.
That's an awesome thing, dude. He's one of the best characters the NFL's ever had.
He is.
But I want to give credit to Rihanna for even performing, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, she's up in the air on a Super Smash Bros map. Like, literally,
that was the first thing I said when I watched it drop down. I'm like, oh no, is Bowser gonna come out with a body slam?
Yeah, dude, like, you got to give her credit for even still choosing to go with it, because I assume she wasn't pregnant when she accepted the Super Bowl performance, and to just still go with it and to kind of announce that she's pregnant the way that she had, and you got to give her credit, man. She still put on quite a show.
Together, like,
I don't know. I thought maybe that could be part of the reason she didn't announce she was pregnant. Maybe it's with a different guy. I don't know. I really don't know. Okay. He was there. He was filming her. He looked happy to be there.
Okay, then I'm assuming that's his kid.
Right. Who knows, right? I mean,
yeah. It's just, I mean, doesn't Future have like 8 kids with like 4 different people? Like it's.
I think he's got like 8 kids with like 8 different people. And he's not involved in any.
And he I was about to say, he brags about not paying child support.
Yeah, like literally.
What are you doing? It's not
Russell
something
Wilson,
to brag about.
Russell Wilson's raising his Future's son, and they changed his name. It was I think it was Future Jr., and they changed his name. I think, I don't know, or they call him something different. I don't know. That's suck.
Hilarious. Okay, and while we're kind of on the topic of pop culture and whatever stuff, I think as far as NFL pop culture goes, this is a huge loss. Inconsolable.
He looks good bald though.
Don't get me wrong. He looks 1,000 times better bald than he looked with that haircut. But that haircut, like, this man is a multi-billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire, Mark, and he was rocking this for years. For years.
Oh yeah, Dumb and Dumber. That's the look, man. He's been repping it. Mark Davis is a legend. It's sad, man. It's sad to see that go, but he looks like a whole different person, dude. He really does.
He looks a million times better.
He looks like a billionaire now, you know?
Right.
That's the difference between, I guess, like being like a mega millionaire and like a legit billionaire.
He just needs like a bunch of rings on and like a fat stogie to be smoking, like
a cane, like walk with a cane.
Yeah, legendary. And then we can get into this graphic, and I also want to talk about Derek Carr a bit. But so far, these are the 5 head coaching hires. Are there any vacancies at this point?
No,
I
I
don't.
think that filled it. What about the Commanders? Still have Rivera, right? They didn't.
Yeah, they're keeping him around for another year, it sounds like. So Frank Reich obviously went from the Colts to the Panthers, so he is the Panthers head coach. And I mean, look, he's really good at managing like around 500 teams. That's kind of been his staple. So I'm sure he'll get Panthers playing around 500 football in no time.
He's hired John. He's hired quite the assistant coaching staff, by the way.
Yeah,
Jim
that's the other thing
Caldwell,
I was gonna say. He's got Jim
Deuce
Caldwell, Deuce
Staley. I mean,
Staley.
they've gotten some really good guys around him.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal for him.
No, I agree. And I was gonna mention that too. So thank you for reminding me to chat about that real quick. And you got Sean Payton. Obviously, it's been a year in broadcasting, but coming from the Saints, paid a lot of money and a draft pick to get him. D'Amico Ryan's coming from the DC job at the 49ers for the Texans. I'm really excited about him. He is a mastermind. He is a huge reason why the 49ers had such a great season this past season. So curious to see what he does with the Texans, and curious to see if the Texans have more than 365 days worth of patience. Because
Did you see, John? Did you see who he hired as his offensive coordinator?
I heard he was interviewing Cliff Kingsbury.
They ended up hiring the co-offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, receivers from the 49ers, who he coached with, right, when he was an assistant. So we might see a similar Shanahan tree, like Mike McDaniel. You're going to see that now with the Texans offense, probably a similar running style.
Say the
And
Shanahan
you think about it,
coming
with,
to the NFC or the
Pierce
AFC South.
Think about Troy Harrison and Pierce in the running game they already had this year. You add a new blocking scheme. You add Bryce Young at quarterback, right? Like, you're looking at a whole different offense, and we know what D'Amico Ryans does with his defenses. So the Texans are no joke. I think that's a really good hire as a head coach, and then I think he hired a really good young guy who's hungry to go prove himself as his OC, who he already has chemistry with. That's a big deal.
I'm sure we'll have to get Troy on here sometime soon to ask him about how he feels about all those coaching changes. But if I were him, I'd be pretty stoked about it. I'd be feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And then is it Shane Steichen, who is the OC for the Eagles, that got announced basically right after the Super Bowl that he was going to the Colts, and Jonathan Gannon, who's the DC for the Eagles, that is now the head coach for the Cardinals. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. Lock and load for all these teams. Out of these 5 that you're currently looking at, who is going to have the biggest improvement?
D'Amico Ryans, without a doubt.
With the Texans? I would put my money on that as well. I would say second best would be Sean Payton. Third best would be Frank Reich. Then Colts and Cardinals. That's kind of how I'm ranking it.
I would say D'Amico Ryans, without a doubt, for sure. Not even close. I'm going to say Frank Reich as my second. I'm going to go Shane Steichen with the Colts, Sean Payton, then Jonathan Gannon. I think that the Cardinals is a shitty situation to be in. You have Kyler Murray at quarterback, not sure what to do with him. Kind of a cancer to the team. This is a defensive coordinator.
Bringing a defensive coach,
mind in that was like, I mean, you saw him get exposed in the Super Bowl with an Andy Reid play calling. And then Sean Payton still worries me, dude. I've said it before, but that's a very hard situation to turn around. I know he's a great coach. I know he has an amazing track record, but Russell Wilson has a long way to go before they're even functional, compete within the division,
Right.
But yeah, do you have any Super Bowl moments, John, that, before we get into the end of this episode, anything that stands out, like any low key plays that like you remember that like turned the tide? I can think of a couple.
Yeah, I mean, so I know you mentioned this to me before the episode got started, and I have been kind of thinking about it. Like, I mean, talking about key moments that resulted in touchdowns, obviously that Hurts fumble was huge and that punt return was huge. I mean, talk about, momentum changers. I think those were really, really big. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I'm really kind of, look, huge shout out to Dallas Goedert. I mean, that dude played his
really well.
mind off. I mean, some of the catches that he hauled in throughout that entire game were Travis Kelce-esque. Like his ability to not only get open, but also when he wasn't really open and the coverage was pretty tight, and he was still finding a way to bring the ball down. So, yeah, I mean, there was a couple moments I thought were really impressive with him. And I think the moments where, Pat Mahomes was pretty much forced to move out of the pocket and actually use his legs a little bit ended up being pretty pivotal as well. Because when, like I said, when you put quarterbacks in an unscripted situation often, it usually doesn't work out well for them. I think there was maybe only 2 or 3 times he chose to do that the entire game, and it clearly took the defense off guard. So, probably some of those like bigger moments that I was pretty impressed by that weren't like, mind blowing plays or huge touchdown passes or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think my two X factors going to the game, I think in our last week's episode, if people want to go and fact check me, was Mahomes' ability to move, which a lot of people were saying he's not going to be able to. I said, I think he will be able to.
You did.
And he rushed for over 50 yards. And then Kadarius Toney was my other one, who he didn't play a lot for some reason. I don't know why. He only returned punts until the touchdown play. Like, he was not in the game. I think he probably played maybe 6 snaps total offensively, which really pissed me off because I had a couple bets on him. But the punt return changed the game, and then obviously his touchdown gave him their first lead. So that was 2 big plays.
He made his time on the field very valuable.
He made it matter. But I want to do the Eagles quarterback sneak. I think the league might do something about that in this offseason. I think that they might try to take away the push rule. Because it used to be illegal to push. Now it's legal. It all
just because one team was brilliant at executing on it doesn't mean that they need to change the rules around it.
I don't think they should change it. I'm just saying they might take a look at it.
They might put that under a microscope for the offseason.
Because that was ridiculous. Basically, it's 1st and 9 or 1st and 8 every time they start their series. Because you saw how they called plays throughout the game. Like, if the Eagles had a 3rd and 8, they would run the ball knowing they're going to go for it on 4th and less than 4.
Right.
And they were just going to do quarterback sneaks. I mean, I was literally joked with the people I was watching the game with. I was like, they could probably run quarterback sneak all the way up the field and get first downs because they're getting like 3 or 4 yards on every single one.
It was
and there's
crazy.
Nothing they can do about it.
I mean, but here's the thing. Like, yes, the offensive line push obviously matters with that, but you also have to remember that your quarterback can squat like 700 pounds. I mean, he can move.
And then you have AJ Brown and Goddard and Miles Sanders pushing him, who are not weak people. So it's like, I don't know. It's almost, and Chris Jones couldn't even stop it. If he can't stop it, inside of that interior defense, I don't know who can. I think the biggest turning point in the game, John, that wasn't a scoring play was the 4th and 1 right around midfield that the Eagles had, and they false started trying to run a quarterback sneak and made it 4th and 6 so that they had to punt. Because that was the only way the Chiefs were getting off the field there. Right. And, if they get that and they go down and score or kick a field goal, we're looking at an entirely different game, right? I mean, it's every possession mattered in that game. Obviously, the fumble was a huge momentum changer. You hate to see that. And again, Patrick Mahomes making plays with his legs. He rushed for over 50 yards. A couple of those scramble plays, you're like, oh my God, just slide. And he kept going because he was willing himself through that. He was invincible in those moments. He was not going to feel pain. He wanted it so bad. He was not going to feel pain in those moments. So that to me stood out.
It was really impressive for sure. Last thing I want to mention, just because this is the first big free agency situation, is Derek Carr. And
released. Yeah.
Because honestly, I have to shout out. So Derek Carr met with the Saints, and it sounded like it was very positive, right? He spent 2 entire days with them, like 15 to 20 hours. Gets back to Vegas and goes, nah, I'm not letting them trade for me. I'm actually not letting any team in the NFL trade for me. I don't want you guys getting compensated on my behalf. You're going to have to release me. Like, the thing is that they played hardball against him for no reason throughout the season, benching him, saying that he's the reason that they're losing. Like, Josh McDaniels just talking like, coach, he's talking shit for a coach, right? Like, it's kind of just, back of the mouth kind of stuff. But like, still, they were not being very respectful towards him in the in-season. And I really actually respect Derek Carr for kind of putting his middle fingers up and saying, not release me, like, deal with the cap hit, no compensation.
Dude,
and I'm going to have 31 teams that I get to talk to now if I want,
It takes a lot, John, for Derek Carr, who's one of the better dudes in the NFL, and just like, he's a good guy, right? Like a religious guy, nice guy, good leader, has a great track record with teammates. For him to walk out on his team when the season's not over yet, some bad shit had to go down behind closed doors. Like some bad stuff was said, ownership, coaching. I mean, he was really, I think, just completely shit on. And for him to do what he did and to still even like at the Pro Bowl, just wear the NFL hat, not even representatives, to, like you said, demand a release and not even let them get the value out of a trade. Like he really has something against them. And I think something happened bad.
Let's
And
not
we'll never
forget
know.
that
I don't think he's going to.
this dude has eaten shit as a result of poor management and coaching from this organization for years now, right?
Think about what he's gone through, John.
That's what I'm trying to say. And not only has gone through, but then has rallied the troops around him to put together some pretty good seasons, right? We're usually just barely missing the playoffs more often than not. Last year, taking, a coach getting fired midseason, a first round draft pick murdering somebody, like all of these things going wrong and still making that a playoff team, right? And then that organization who has, again, really fumbled the bag in more situations than not, to then go and disrespect Carr and say he's the problem. Like, I think I would have probably done the same thing. I would have felt really insulted and hurt. And it makes me appreciate as a Lions fan how we handled the Stafford situation. It was cordial. We got, both parties got something that they wanted out of it. There wasn't any MFing, even though that coaching staff deserved a whole lot of MFing. Like, he was a professional about it through and through. He ended up getting the Super Bowl out of it. We ended up getting the draft picks that we needed to restart our organization. And just the fact that he was like, nah, like, you guys did nothing but make my life really difficult as a leader and quarterback for your organization for the entire time that I've been here. Like, why would I do you a favor right now? And I really did respect that.
Dude,
move. Like,
I mean, you look at people, you look at, like, to your point, you have the Antonio Brown situation coming to Vegas, thinking he's your franchise receiver, burning his feet, just being a weirdo ever since he got there. Every time you think he's going to turn around, he just doesn't. You have Henry Ruggs drunk driving, killing somebody. You have the whole John Gruden situation with the email leaks and the racist comments and all of that stuff. And then, like you
the
said,
list
the
goes on
coaching
too. That's
changes.
like the past couple of years.
I mean, for him to maintain and still stay at quarterback and play at a high level for basically the entirety of that, all the way up, I think he just reached his boiling point. I'm excited for him to get a new opportunity with a different team because I think he's a hell of a quarterback. Talent-wise, he can do just about anything. But
Jets or Saints, I think Jets or Saints are probably going. And listen to this too. Alex Leatherwood cut, Henry Ruggs cut, Damon Arnett cut. These are their first round picks for each year. What is it? Clayton Farrell, fifth year declined. Josh Jacobs declined, and Jonathan Abram declined. I mean, literally none of their first round picks from the past 5 years have panned out for them. Crazy. So, like,
it's tough, man. It's tough to win when that's happening. So,
and they still were able to make it happen. So,
yeah, I hope he goes somewhere, and I wouldn't count out the Colts yet either. If Derek Carr, if they can get a more than a 1 year deal with him, he might be worth in. The Bucks are out there. There's some other teams.
The Colts seem set on drafting their future. By I don't know if you saw Irsay's comments, but he basically made it sound like come hell or high water, we are drafting a quarterback in the first round, right? So So I think they're moving on from that. But thinking of quarterback needy teams, I'm thinking Panthers, Saints, Jets. It's probably his top three, I would say, most likely. We'll see.
I'm also hearing some stuff, John. I'm also hearing some stuff. Lamar doesn't sound too set in Baltimore. They just hired a new offensive coordinator today. That was Georgia's offensive coordinator.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not hearing a lot of we really are going to keep Lamar here from him or from the team.
Well, so Harbaugh said, yes, he's going to be our quarterback. But the thing is that they're doing a franchise tag. And that as we saw with Devontae, right? Like, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a sealed deal. Like, things can still happen that allow a very, very prime position player to end up going somewhere else. So yeah, I'm curious. A lot of interesting stuff. Yeah, I think that's all we got for this episode. Again, I know that we kind of have wrapped up the past few with like, thanks, but truly like we're 28 episodes in. We're in season 2 now. Like this has been awesome for Mark and I, and we appreciate everybody that's kind of, rode along on the journey with us while we figured out this entire thing. I think we've gotten a better cadence of being podcast hosts. I think we've really figured out this entire TikTok short situation. Like I think that we're about to drop some merch, which I think is kind of a fun step forward. So it's been cool, just, slowly but surely getting our bearings and figuring out how to bootstrap this entire thing.
And having some fun and laughs with it the entire way. Some awesome guests have come on. And, we look forward to having more awesome people come on the show, and hearing more feedback from people helps John and I out a ton. And whether it's just commenting on stuff, texting us, whatever, we've appreciated all of it. And yeah, season 1, check. Got to see an awesome Super Bowl, an awesome season. I'm sure we'll do some season recap stuff here in the next few episodes, get some new guests on. But season 2 is underway, man. Just like that, 28 episodes in. But yeah, thank you guys. It's been awesome. We're having a lot of fun.
We got a season recap, free agency, and draft prep in the coming, couple of months here. So definitely get ready for that. We will see you guys next time. Peace.
See you guys.